You sit before me, and I stand here, not as a lecturer dispensing sterile facts, but as a voice that emerges from the same depths that stir within you. What I say is not entirely mine, nor is it entirely yours. It belongs to that hidden stream which flows beneath the collective and the individual, a river of images, symbols, and forgotten truths that binds us together across centuries. If you are here listening, it is because some part of you already knows there are things seen only by the few, and that knowledge itself carries both a blessing and a burden. You sense, perhaps, that to see what others do not is not a privilege lightly carried. It is a summons that may estrange you from the world as it is ordinarily lived. And yet, you cannot unsee the eyes of the soul, once opened, cannot be shut without consequence. This danger begins in innocence. A child dreams, and the dream is full of presences, shadows, and luminous figures. To the child, these are as real as the daylight world. But slowly, society presses upon the young soul with its injunctions. That is only imagination. That is not real. Be practical. See what everyone else sees. And so, the first veil is drawn, the first repression enacted, the first sacrifice made to belong. But some children, some few among us, never fully surrender their vision. They continue to glimpse shapes moving behind the curtain, archetypal dramas being played out in dreams, uncanny repetitions in their encounters, invisible forces that seem to shape the very air around them. To carry this sight into adulthood is both a gift and a curse. The collective does not tolerate deviation easily. To see what others do not is to invite suspicion, rejection, and sometimes persecution. This is why prophets were stoned, why visionaries were dismissed as lunatics, why shamans were cast out before they were honored. There is danger in bearing a vision not shared by the many, and yet, if humanity is to evolve, someone must see differently. Someone must notice what lies in shadow. Someone must remember the gods that have been forgotten. Let us speak of the shadow, for it is here that the danger intensifies when you see what others cannot. Often what you see is not some radiant light, but a darkness they would rather deny. You may notice the hidden aggression behind a smile, the envy masked by courtesy, the wound behind the perfection of an achievement. You may perceive not only in others, but in yourself, the grotesque double that accompanies every ideal, the serpent that coils behind the angel. To acknowledge this is to live in tension, for society thrives on the polite denial of its own shadow. If you insist on bringing it to light, you risk becoming the scapegoat, the one blamed for speaking what all secretly know but cannot admit. And yet, in this danger lies the seed of transformation. To see the shadow clearly is to loosen its grip. The man who knows he carries cruelty may begin to restrain it. The woman who admits her envy may begin to heal it. But when no one dares to see, When the collective shadow grows too heavy, it erupts in catastrophe. Wars are nothing other than the collective shadow of nations made flesh. Persecutions, genocides, hysterias, all emerge because people refuse to look at what was within. Thus, the one who sees may bear suffering, but also carries a redemptive role. Dreams are often the first terrain where this seeing unfolds. Imagine a man who dreams repeatedly of a house with a locked cellar. Night after night, he hears noises from below, but is afraid to descend. In waking life, he insists he is well adjusted, successful, content, but the dream tells another story. What is locked beneath is the repressed content of his psyche. Perhaps the grief he never faced, perhaps the aggression he cannot acknowledge. To confront it would shatter his self-image. But if he dares to descend, he may discover the roots of his illness, the source of his unease. The dream gives him the opportunity to see what others do, not even what he himself has refused to see. You may recognize this in your own life. Perhaps you have felt the eerie sense that a dream is not just a dream, but a message coded in the language of the soul. Perhaps you have been disturbed by a symbol that returns again and again, like an ancient visitor at your door. You cannot explain it to others without seeming strange, and so you carry it silently. But silence is not always safe, for unspoken visions have a way of festering. Better to wrestle openly with the figures of the unconscious, to give them a voice, than to let them devour you from within. Here is where archetypes come to us. The seer, the prophet, the fool, the outcast, all are figures that appear across cultures and epochs, each carrying the pattern of the one who sees differently. To embody such an archetype in real life is perilous. The prophet must live with rejection, the fool with ridicule, the outcast with loneliness. But within these archetypes lies power, for what society rejects often holds the very medicine it most needs. The fool carries the wisdom that dissolves rigidity. The outcast reveals the limits of conformity. The prophet calls forth the future from beyond the present horizon. To step into such a role is to walk the razor's edge. Now let us pause, not in silence, but in depth. What does it mean to see what others cannot? It does not mean superior intelligence. It does not mean clairvoyance in the vulgar sense. It means that you have allowed yourself to be penetrated by the unconscious, to admit its images, its symbols, its irrational voices, and to give them room in consciousness. Most people guard the gates of their psyche tightly, fearing invasion by madness. And they are right to fear, for the unconscious is a torrent, and one who opens the gates too widely may indeed be swept away. This is why many who glimpse too much too quickly fall into psychosis or burn in the fire of visions they cannot contain. The danger is real, but there is also danger in remaining blind. To live without vision is to remain at the mercy of forces you do not understand. You may think you are choosing freely, but in truth, you are being chosen by impulses, complexes, ancestral patterns that move through you like invisible puppeteers. The man who despises his father may unconsciously become him. The woman who seeks liberation may find herself enslaved by the very patterns she resists. Without seeing, you are condemned to repeat. Only by bringing unconscious content into consciousness can you begin to break the cycle. Thus, the danger of seeing is balanced by the greater danger of blindness. And what of society, this vast web in which we are all caught? Here too, the danger of sight is acute. To see that the myths of the modern world are as fragile as those of antiquity is to unsettle the foundations on which most people rest. Money, progress, nationalism, technology, these are the gods of our age, and to question them is heresy. But if you see that these gods are hollow, that they do not nourish the soul, you stand at the edge of exile. You may be dismissed as irrelevant, romantic, delusional, yet within you burns the uneasy certainty that the collective is moving blindly toward destruction. The danger, then, is twofold. If you remain silent, you betray the vision. If you speak, you risk being cast out. Each must decide how to carry the vision, how to live with eyes that see beyond the surface. Some may close their vision in art, in poetry, in story, disguising truth as metaphor so that it can be received without immediate rejection. Others may whisper it only to a few kindred souls, forming hidden communities of the awakened, and a rare few may dare to shout it from the rooftops, accepting the fate of the misunderstood. There is no single path, only the burden of choice. Do you feel this burden within yourself? Do you recognize the moments when you saw something others refused to acknowledge? Perhaps it was in the face of a loved one, where you noticed the mask slipping for a second, revealing despair behind their practiced smile. Perhaps it was in the world itself, where you saw that the values people chase, wealth, status, distraction, ring hollow when weighed against the quiet voice of the soul. These moments of seeing are initiations, small deaths of innocence, thresholds into a deeper knowing. Each time you cross such a threshold, you are less able to return to the comfortable blindness of before. There is, however, a way to bear the burden without being destroyed. It is the way of integration. You must not only see the darkness, but also hold the light. You must not only notice what others deny, but also cultivate what sustains. If you see the shadow, balance it with the archetype of the self, the inner wholeness that contains both darkness and light, both chaos and order. For the self is not merely the ego expanded, but the center that transcends the opposites, the secret unity that makes meaning possible. When you anchor yourself in the self, you may withstand the storms of vision without being torn apart. I tell you, then the danger of seeing is real, but the greater danger is to betray the call of the soul. For if you turn away from what you have seen, it will not vanish. It will grow stronger in the dark haunting you, pursuing you, until it bursts forth in some uncontrollable form. Better to meet it willingly, to walk into the unknown consciously, than to be dragged into it, kicking and screaming. The unconscious will have its due. The only question is whether you will serve it blindly or enter into dialogue with it as a partner. And so, my friend, as you sit here listening, consider this. Perhaps you, too, were never meant to remain among the blind. Perhaps your suffering, your unease, your strange perceptions are not a curse, but an initiation. The world may not understand, but the soul understands. The archetypes understand, the dreams understand, and if you dare to trust the inner guide, the self, then the danger may become the path. You see, when the eyes of the soul open, there is no retreat into the comforts of ignorance. To see is to be chosen by a truth larger than yourself, and such truth does not bargain with convenience. It strips away illusions one by one, until you stand naked before the raw pulse of existence. Many would rather cover their eyes, retreat into distraction, or drown themselves in the noise of the crowd. But the one who sees cannot. The dream speaks too loudly, the symbol presses too heavily. The silence itself resounds with voices. You feel within you a summons that will not be silenced. Even if you long to return to blindness, think of the ancient myths, for they preserve the stories of those who saw too much. Prometheus stole fire from the gods, and for that he was bound and tormented. Oedipus solved the riddle of the Sphinx, but his vision carried him into unbearable truth. Cassandra, blessed with sight into the future, was cursed so that no one believed her. These myths are not distant curiosities. They are mirrors of the human condition. To see what others do not is to step into their pattern. You may bring fire, but you will also be bound. You may know truth, but it may burn you with unbearable clarity. The modern man imagines himself free from myth, yet myths are the unconscious stories by which we live, whether we recognize them or not. When you dream of a serpent or find yourself haunted by an image of light breaking through clouds, you are experiencing the same archetypal forces that moved our ancestors. To see them consciously is rare, for most drift through life guided by them blindly. But you who see are no longer blind. You feel their pull, you notice their repetition, and you begin to suspect that what most call my life is in truth a tapestry woven by deeper forces, by ancient dramas replayed in the theater of the soul. This recognition is both liberating and dangerous. It is liberating because you realize you are more than the narrow ego that wears a name and plays a role in society. You sense that within you live gods, heroes, demons, and sages, each a fragment of the great drama of existence. But it is dangerous, because to know this truth is to lose the comfort of simple identity. You are no longer just a man, just a woman, just a profession, just a role. You are a vessel of archetypes, a battleground of forces, a place where the eternal reveals itself in fleeting form. This knowledge is heavy. Few can carry it with grace. It is for this reason that those who see are often misunderstood or even feared. Society clings to the illusion of stability. It wants its doctors to be only doctors, its teachers only teachers, its leaders only leaders. When one of them begins to speak as a prophet, to dream as a mystic, to reveal truths that unsettle, the collective reacts defensively. They whisper, "He has gone mad. She has lost her way. They are unfit." But in truth, madness and vision are close neighbors. The difference lies not in the images themselves, but in the relationship to them. The madman is possessed by visions. The seer enters into dialogue with them. I have sat with those deemed insane, and I have listened to their voices. Often, beneath the chaos, there is a wisdom unrecognized, a mist breaking through in raw and unshaped form. They see, but they cannot contain what they see. They are overwhelmed. This is why I say to see is dangerous. Unless you learn the art of integration, the unconscious cannot be abolished. It must be related to, its figures must be honored, it was heard, its energies given form in art, in ritual, in word, in life. Otherwise, they devour from within. Consider, then, the dreamer who sees an old wise man in his sleep, a figure with eyes that burn and words that echo with power. He awakens and feels he has spoken with God. If he dismisses it as nonsense, he loses an opportunity. If he believes it literally, he may become inflated, a false prophet, convinced of his divinity. But if he treats it as a message from the depths, a visitation of the archetype of wisdom, then he may learn, he may integrate, he may grow. This is the delicate balance, not denial, not inflation, but relationship. The archetypes are not ours to command. They are powers to which we must respond with reverence. The danger of seeing is heightened by solitude. For the one who sees often feels estranged from those around them. You speak of your dreams and they laugh. You describe the symbol that haunts you and they shrug. You begin to wonder if you are alone in the world, if perhaps you are cursed with this second sight. Loneliness descends like a fog. Many visionaries retreat in despair, silencing themselves to fit in or withdrawing entirely into isolation. But solitude too can be a crucible. In the silence of being misunderstood, the vision deepens, the soul expands, and the dialogue with the unconscious becomes more intimate. Still, one must guard against arrogance. To see what others do not does not make you superior. It makes you responsible. The moment you claim superiority, you are already ensnared by the archetype of the false prophet, the one who confuses personal vision with universal truth, true vision humbles. It shows you not only the blindness of others, but your own. It reveals that you too are bound by illusions, by shadows, by projections. The danger is not only in being rejected by others, but in becoming possessed by your own sight. Remember, the unconscious does not belong to you. You belong to it. Now let us turn to projection, for here lies another danger of seeing. Projection occurs when we encounter in another what belongs to ourselves. You may see cruelty in your neighbor, but in truth, it may be your own repressed cruelty. You may see holiness in a lover, but it may be your own unclaimed divinity. To recognize projection is to begin the path of self-knowledge, but to remain blind to it is to live in illusion. And here is the subtle danger. The more one sees, the more one risks projecting. You notice patterns others ignore. But if you have not integrated your own shadow, you may misinterpret what you see, casting your inner content onto the world and mistaking it for truth. I recall a patient who insisted that he was surrounded by enemies. He saw hostility in every glance, conspiracy in every silence. At first glance, one might dismiss him as paranoid. But when we explored his inner world, we discovered a deep well of unacknowledged rage, a hatred of life itself that he could not face. What he saw in others was his own shadow, disowned and projected. To help him was not to prove his enemy's faults, but to guide him into that locked cellar of his psyche where his own fury awaited. Only then did the projections begin to dissolve. You see, to see clearly requires humility, the willingness to suspect one's own vision, to test it against the depths within. Archetypes reveal themselves most forcefully in moments of crisis. When a marriage collapses, when a career ends, when illness strikes, one often begins to see what was hidden. The mask of normalcy falls away, and the raw forces of the unconscious surge up. A man who loses his position may suddenly dream of wandering in deserts, of meeting tricksters and sages, of crossing rivers. He thinks he is merely unemployed, but the unconscious reveals that he is on a hero's journey, forced to leave the known and confront the unknown. If he resists, he suffers meaninglessly. If he accepts, he suffers with meaning, and suffering with meaning transforms. This is another danger of seeing. Once you glimpse the archetypal dimension, ordinary explanations are never enough. You see that illness is not only biological, but symbolic. You see that conflict is not only personal, but mythic. You see that life is not only random, but woven by patterns that repeat through history and soul alike. Sukhvishan sets you apart. The doctor who speaks of archetypes in diagnosis will be mocked by colleagues. The parent who interprets a child's nightmare as mythic initiation will be dismissed as fanciful, and yet These interpretations give depth, meaning, and transformation. Where ordinary sight gives only despair, the collective resists the steps because it threatens the fragile stability of the rational order. Rationality is necessary, yes, but it is only one wing of the soul. The other wing is imagination, myth, the unconscious. To fly with one wing is to circle endlessly, never soaring. To see what others do not is to use both wings. It is to accept the irrational as real, to honor the symbol as truth, to bow before mystery as the ground of being. But to say such things aloud is to invite ridicule. Here again, you feel the danger to speak or to remain silent. Let me tell you, silence has its place, but silence forever kills the soul. What you see must find expression or it will turn against you. The vision must be spoken, written, painted, danced, lived, not always directly, not always publicly, but always somehow. Art has been the refuge of seers throughout time, for in art the unspeakable may be given form without demanding literal belief. A painting of a dark forest, a poem of a serpent in the night, a story of a wanderer on the edge of the world, these can carry the vision without provoking immediate rejection. Through symbol, the dangerous truth is smuggled into the collective, where it can work secretly, transforming slowly. And you, who carry visions, must find your way of expression, perhaps through words, perhaps through images, perhaps through deeds. The form matters less than the authenticity. If you withhold entirely, the unconscious will not forgive. It will erupt in neurosis, in illness, in despair. Better to risk misunderstanding than to betray the soul. So I tell you again, the danger is real. But danger is not to be avoided. It is to be faced with courage and wisdom. Life without danger is life without depth. To live only where it is safe is to die before death. But to walk into the unknown, eyes open, willing to see what others cannot, that is the path of individuation. The path by which the soul becomes whole. When you allow yourself to step fully into the vision, you discover that the world is not merely what it seems. You begin to notice correspondences, subtle threads, connecting events, the strange rhythm of synchronicity that mocks the arrogance of chance. The one who sees perceives not only the outer surface of life, but the secret order behind it. This is the most unsettling of revelations, because it dissolves the myth of randomness and forces you to confront the hidden architecture of the psyche. Imagine you dream of a raven, black wings unfolding in silence, and the next day, as you walk through the city, you see the same bird perched on a lamppost, staring at you. You dismiss it as coincidence, yet your soul stirs uneasily. Why this image? Why now? Why in both dream and waking life the rational mind laughs, the collective shrugs, but you know that something deeper has spoken. Synchronicity is a meeting point of inner and outer where the unconscious projects itself upon the world, and the world responds as if in dialogue. Those who see this cannot rest in the shallow explanations of chance. They live in a world alive with meaning, where symbols breathe and reality itself speaks. But here too is danger, for when the world becomes symbolic, the ego trembles. To see synchronicity everywhere is intoxicating. You begin to suspect that nothing is accidental, that everything is coded with secret significance. This is true, but without balance it leads to obsession, paranoia, the inflation of the seer who believes himself the center of the universe. To see what others do not is to walk a razor's edge between meaning and madness. The archetypal figures of trickster and wise old man accompany you always, the one leading into delusion, the other into depth. In the depths of the unconscious, one archetype above all emerges for those who see the archetype of the seer. The prophet, the one burdened with vision. In myths and scriptures, such figures are always marked by strangeness. Elijah in the desert, alone with his God. The shamans who undergo death and dismemberment in visions before returning with power to heal. The poets who hear voices in the night dictating words they cannot claim as their own. To embody this archetype in modern life is to live out a drama few understand. You are no longer only yourself. You are a vessel through which something larger moves. You may long for a simple life, but the vision drags you deeper, and yet do not think this role is glamorous. The prophet is not adored, but resisted. The shaman is not celebrated, but feared. The seer is not welcomed, but exiled. There is always rejection, always suspicion, for vision unsettles the comfort of blindness. And if you cling to the hope of approval, you will betray your calling. The one who sees must learn to endure loneliness, misunderstanding, and even ridicule. Only then can the vision retain its purity, untainted by the craving for recognition. Still, there are compensations, for in loneliness you encounter depths within yourself that the crowd never touches. In resection, you are thrown back upon the self, that mysterious center which binds together all opposites. The self becomes your companion, your guide, your source of meaning. You begin to sense that within you lives not just a small ego, but a vastness as old as humanity itself. This discovery sustains you when the world cannot. It is the hidden treasure that makes the burden bearable. Consider also the role of dreams, for they are the nightly theater where the unconscious reveals its truths. Those who see often find their dreams unusually vivid, charged with archetypal power. A woman dreams of drowning in a flood and awakens to find her life overwhelmed by emotions she cannot control. A man dreams of a child abandoned in the woods and realizes he has neglected his own inner innocence. Dreams reveal what the conscious mind denies. They are both warning and invitation, danger and salvation. But once you learn to read the language of dreams, you cannot stop seeing Every image becomes alive. The serpent that coils in your sleep speaks of instinct and transformation. The tower that collapses reveals the deaths of old structures. The shadow that chases you is your own denied self, demanding recognition. You begin to live in two worlds at once, the outer world of events and the inner world of symbols. For most, these worlds remain separate. For you, they bleed together. This is both gift and burden. The collective cannot understand this way of being because it values only the literal. It asks, is the dream real? Did it happen or not? It cannot grasp that truth lives in symbol, that a dream may reveal more than waking life, but you who see cannot deny it. You know that the dream has reality of its own, that it shapes and guides life as surely as external events. And so you live in tension with a world that denies what you know to be true. This tension is part of the danger, for it can exhaust the soul, yet it is also part of the calling, for only by bearing it can transformation occur. Let us speak of initiation, for seeing what others do not is always an initiation into deeper life. In ancient cultures, initiation was formalized. The initiate was led into darkness, made to face death, confronted with visions, and reborn into new identity. Today, initiation comes unbidden. It arrives as crisis, as breakdown, as vision that shatters the ordinary. You did not choose to see differently. The vision chose you. But once chosen, you are marked. You cannot return to the old innocence. You are on the path of individuation. Whether you will it or not, individuation is not self-improvement, not the polishing of ego, not the attainment of some ideal. It is the painful, glorious, terrifying process by which the unconscious contents of the psyche become conscious, by which shadow and light are integrated, by which the self emerges as the guiding center. To see what others do not is to be thrust onto this path, sometimes violently, the crisis that breaks your heart, the dream that terrifies you, the synchronicity that shocks you. These are initiations. They demand that you grow, that you deepen, that you become more than the small ego you thought you were. But here, again, is danger. Individuation is not guaranteed. Many are broken by the vision. Some collapse into madness, unable to withstand the forces unleashed. Others cling desperately to the old life, repressing what they have seen until it festers into neurosis or despair. Only a few manage to walk the narrow way, to integrate without being destroyed. This requires courage, humility, and above all, patience, for the unconscious does not reveal itself all at once, and to demand too much too quickly is to invite disaster. The vision must be digested slowly, symbol by symbol, step by step. You may wonder why such danger exists at all. Why should the soul demand that we see what others do not, if the price is so high? The answer is that the soul longs for wholeness. Wholeness is not comfort, not safety, but the union of opposites, the reconciliation of shadow and light, conscious and unconscious, human and divine. To attain this wholeness, one must confront what is hidden. The vision is dangerous because truth is dangerous. It dissolves illusions, shatters defense, uproots false identities. But only through this destruction can something greater be born. Thus, the danger is also the promise. To see what others do not is to enter into dialogue with the eternal. It is to stand in the presence of mystery, to participate consciously in the unfolding of the archetypal drama. It is to live not as a passive spectator, but as a co-creator of meaning. This is the path of the seer. It is lonely, it is perilous, but it is real, and in the end, reality is worth more than all the comforts of illusion. So, my friend, if you have been chosen to see, do not despair. Do not imagine yourself cursed. Do not surrender to the fear of rejection. Know that you are walking the path of countless souls before you. The mystics, the shamans, the prophets, the poets, each of whom bore the same burden. You are not alone, even when you feel most isolated. The archetypes walk with you, the self sustains you, and the vision, though dangerous, is the very fire by which the soul is forged. And so we arrive at the threshold where everything converges, the danger, the vision, the loneliness, the transformation. What does it mean? Finally, to live with eyes that see what others cannot. It means to carry within you a double life, the life of the outer world and the life of the inner depths, forever interwoven, forever in dialogue. You rise in the morning and put on your clothes, drink your coffee, walk through the ordinary motions of the day, yet, even as you do, a second layer of reality shimmers beneath the surface. You sense patterns invisible to others. Feel the undercurrent of unconscious forces shaping events, and hear the quiet voice of the self whispering through symbol and dream. This double vision is not comfortable. It tears you between belonging and exile, between simplicity and depth. The collective asks you to forget, to join in its blindness, to accept the flatness of literal reality. But the soul demands otherwise. The soul will not let you reduce life to appearances, for it knows that every appearance conceals a mystery, every event carries meaning, every encounter is charged with archetypal power. The more you resist this demand, the more restless you become, until at last you must surrender to the truth that you are not like the many. You are one who sees, but let us speak frankly. Seeing does not make you a savior. It does not place you above others. If anything, it humbles you to the ground, for you know that what you see is not yours but ours, the collective unconscious, revealing itself through your fragile vessel. You are not master of the vision, you are servant to it. And the moment you imagine yourself exalted, the archetypes will correct you, they will strike with inflation, with madness, with collapse, until you remember your place. The seer is not a god, but a mediator, a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, between the eternal and the temporal. To live as this mediator requires sacrifice. You may never be fully understood, your words may be twisted, your vision doubted, your presence unsettling to those who cling to the ordinary. There will be days when you curse your gift, when you long for the simplicity of blindness. Yet, if you betray it, if you refuse to see, the soul itself will punish you with emptiness, with despair, with a slow death of meaning. For the vision is not given to decorate your life, but to transform it. It is not entertainment, but initiation. The shadow will accompany you always. Do not think that seeing exempts you from it. On the contrary, the more you see, the more you are forced to face the abyss within yourself. You will encounter envy, rage, lust, fear, pride, all the faces you wish to deny. And if you try to project them onto others, if you insist that it is the world that is dark, while you are pure, then the shadow will own you. Only by admitting, yes, this too is mine, can you hope to carry the vision without distortion. The one who sees must become intimate with their own darkness, for without that intimacy, the light itself becomes a lie. Yet, within this struggle lies the deepest promise, for beyond shadow and ego, beyond crisis and despair, there is the self, the mysterious totality that holds all opposites. To live in dialogue with the self is to live in wholeness, not perfection, but completeness. The self is the inner Christ, the Atman, the spark of divinity, the axis around which all turns. When you touch this center, the danger does not vanish, but it is transfigured. You see that every symbol, every dream, every shadow is part of a larger pattern, a mandala of meaning that extends beyond your life into the life of humanity itself. In moments of deep vision, you may glimpse this wholeness directly, perhaps in a dream where you stand before a circle of light, or in waking life when the synchronicity breaks open your heart with awe. These are moments when the self reveals itself, when you know beyond reason that life is not chaos but cosmos, not accident but destiny. Such glimpses sustain you through the dark nights, reminding you that the burden of seeing is also a privilege, that the danger is also a doorway. Still, I must warn you, even the self can be misused. If you imagine that touching it makes you divine, you fall into inflation and collapse. If you imagine that it excuses you from struggle, you fall into illusion. The self is not a possession, but a relationship. It demands reverence, humility, patience. It will not be rushed. It will not be manipulated. It will not be reduced to your convenience. To live with the self is to live in continual dialogue, listening, discerning, surrendering. And what of the world? What is your role among those who do not see? You are not here to impose vision. nor to despise blindness. You are here to embody what you have seen, quietly or boldly, as the moment requires. Sometimes that means speaking. Sometimes it means remaining silent. Sometimes it means creating art that carries the symbol into the collective. Sometimes it means living a life of integrity that itself becomes a symbol. Do not measure your task by recognition. Often, the vision works in secret, changing the soul of another in ways you may never witness. Trust that what is authentic in you will find its way where it is needed. The danger of seeing is real. It may cost you belonging, reputation, even sanity if you are careless, but the cost of not seeing is greater. To refuse the vision is to live a shallow life, unmoored from the depth, cut off from the well of meaning. Better to risk the storm than to dwell forever on the shore. Better to walk into the forest of symbols, trembling but awake, than to sleep in the desert of denial, for only in the forest can you find the hidden treasure, the gold of the soul, the self that waits to be born. So I say to you, do not flee from what you have seen. Do not deny the dreams, the synchronicities, the shadows that speak. Do not imagine that blindness is safety. It is not. Safety is an illusion. Life is transformation. To live is to risk, to grow, to die, and be reborn again and again. The vision is the fire that burns away what is false, leaving only what is real. Yes, it is dangerous, but it is also holy. To see what others do not is to stand at the threshold of mystery. And mystery is a soul's true home. Carry your vision with humility. Let it shape you, wound you, heal you. Do not seek to convert others. Seek only to live authentically what has been given. If you do, your life itself will become a symbol, a light in the darkness, a whisper of truth in a world afraid to listen. And though you may walk alone, you will never be abandoned, for the archetypes accompany you, the self sustains you, and the eternal speaks through you. This, then, is the danger and the promise. To see what others do not is to live in exile, yet also in communion with the deepest reality. It is to walk a narrow path, but one that leads to wholeness. It is to suffer, but to suffer with meaning. And in the end, it is to know that your vision, though never meant to be known by all, was meant to be known by you. For in your seeing, the soul fulfills its calling, and the mystery of existence finds one more voice through which to speak.